Hey, good afternoon, guys. How are you all? Hope you're well. Someone give me a shout out in the chat if you can hear me okay. We are on a different microphone today, so that is awesome. Where do you pick up your plasma rifle, Matt? You pick it up at the barracks, I guess, and you have to use that for a month, and then you can level up and use a chainsword after that, or a power fist or a thunderhammer. I guess Assault Marines get all sorts of crazy stuff, or even you can become a Centurion. 1 a.m. for me. Alright, well, thank you for tuning in this late at night. I'm not sure I would be watching Army Lists at 1 a.m, but fair enough. And hey Steel Rain, hey Zacharias, Knucking Futs. Almost said that the wrong way around. Good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, we are here for episode 20, which is pretty cool. So I guess by the end of today, we will have reviewed 100 army lists. I had to think about that for a second. And we are going to start with a list. I'm going to put the current list we're looking at in the top right-hand corner of the stream, so you guys will know exactly whose list we're looking at. And we're going to be starting with Steel Rain, who is one of our channel members. So I always really appreciate the members, so thank you for that. And as always, we got 5 lists to look at. I'm just realizing that I didn't quickly create my spreadsheet before. I always forget something, so this week we remember to put the names in the top left, but we forgot to make our spreadsheet, so failure on my part. But yeah, so the lists we're looking at today are Steel Rain. We are also looking at one from Tony. I think it's Tony that's usually in the chat. It might be a different Tony. We do have a couple of Tonys, but hopefully, I think it's Tony that's always hanging out in the chat. We have Lloyd, we have Jack, and we have Nick the Watcher. So 5 lists to look at today. And if you do want to submit your list for basically me to look at in the future, then it's very simple. All you need to do is go over to the Blood Angels Commander channel page, which you see here on YouTube. You tap on the community tab, and in the latest community post, just in here, post your list as a comment. It is Tony Stark. Okay, cool. Just post your list in as a comment here, and that way I'll find it and I'll pick it up and I'll add it to the queue for reviews. So at the moment, the members queue is about 2 weeks, maybe. If you want to get your list reviewed as a member. If you're a non-member, it's quite a bit longer. 7 or 8 weeks probably for non-members. So, I mean, if you want a quick review, then I guess when you're not a member, that is one way to get a quick review. Otherwise, you just have to wait it out a little bit. What if I submitted a list and I want to adjust it? No, 100%. I mean, just best. It's probably best that you ping me. Make a new comment, because YouTube doesn't show me replies to comments that I've already commented on. Is it for today's list? No, it's not today. Just send it. Just make another comment, Benjamin, and just say that you already submitted a list and you want to change it. That's no problem at all. I had a good tournament yesterday, 3-0 with a straight Vanguard. Hope you all open back up in the UK. Nice. We were talking a lot about Vanguard attachments and stuff this week, Jesse. I don't know if you watched our video on OBSEC. So, Actrial, hello, how you doing? Did you get my updated list from a few days ago in Discord? Steel Rain's asking. I feel like I did, Steel Rain. It says that I'd modified this file on the 5th. So, when was the 5th? Wednesday. So, I mean, if it was the one you sent on Wednesday, I feel like it had a huge amount of text. I had it up earlier. You wrote me an essay. You know that I hate reading on stream as well, because I'm terrible at reading. But you wrote me a giant essay just to keep me on my toes. So thanks for that. And if you do, at the end of the stream, what I always do is I always post all the lists into the comments section after the stream ends. So if anyone wants to catch up and has essentially missed a list and wants to check it out, then they can do that in the comments section after the stream has ended. Like an hour after the stream has ended, I'll put up the lists, And then you may have noticed, like, on my starting banner now, I guess you won't see it here for a second because the chat's up, but if we just flip the chat off for a second, you'll notice now that I've been putting the schedule every day, or the weekly schedule. I mean, this is what I stream 90% of the time each week. You know, we have our hobby hangouts Thursdays and Saturdays. We have a live show on Sundays, and then we do live battles every Monday night. However, they are stopped for probably like 3 weeks. So I'll let you know when live battles will be back. I'm keen to get going, but it's fine. You know, we were painting Sangorigard on stream last night, so it gives us some more options on the tabletop. So live battles shouldn't be too long away. James says, greetings. So how many lists do you have to review for today? I hope not too many. We do 5 every week, man. And we just, if you submitted a list and you're not in this list, I just do it on a first come first serve basis with members getting priority. So yeah, it's the show. The show is usually live for 2.5 hours, and we always just do 5 lists a week. So that's kind of the format of this show. Okay, cool. So let's get into list number 1. And this is from Steel Rain. And as always, if there's any questions anyone has in the chat, or if any issues come up, just ping me. I try and answer as much as I can during the chat, during the stream. And it could be anything from a question about rules, or detachments, or anything on the weekly videos. And yeah, because Monday night battle shows are cancelled for a few weeks, just to be safe, I guess, because the COVID in my area has kind of spiked, and I'm not risking it. So because we're being safe for the next couple of weeks, at least, I guess, tomorrow night when we go live, we're going to go live an hour later than normal, so we're going to go live at 8:30. Hey Joanne, and we're going to go live at 8:30, and we're going to talk about a bunch of our recent victories, and we're going to take questions, and we're going to try and run over some of the strengths and weaknesses of the enemies and how we played against them, and some of the thinking. So it'll be something different tomorrow night. Hopefully it'll be entertaining, and hopefully you'll learn something. So I mean, feel free to come and hang out for a couple hours tomorrow night. We'll probably be live from about 8:30 till 11, I guess. Same deal, 2.5 hours. Usually after I've spoke for 2.5 hours, my voice is like dying on me. So 2.5 hours seems like a good amount of time. All right, cool. So list number 1 today, and it is from Steel Rain. And he said, this is my current list. Sorry for the description essay, but I'm doing something different that I felt needed an explanation. I'm always trying to streamline, so it's changing incrementally over time. The basic of the list went 7-1 with 3 straight tables, and 1 loss being a very aggressive sisters list. Yeah, I mean, aggressive sister lists are pretty difficult to deal with. I think the biggest threat right now is armies with high number efficient assault units. Since playing that list, I've changed the list to add more shooting, adding Centurions, Heavy Flamers, Devastators, Whirlwind, and Adante. Don't see many people running heavy Flamer Devastators, so that's interesting. This is a very aggressive list, and there are things that I'm sure you'll comment on, but bear with me. The point of this list is being disruption of the opponents, forcing shooting onto Storm Shields, pushing opponents off objectives, and every unit doing something every turn. Yeah, I mean, I like forcing units to shoot at Storm Shields. It's really efficient. The company champion, non-jump pack Vanguards and Librarian will deploy from a drop pod in turn 1. Both Devastators will deploy in the second drop pod, and it will be left on midfield or in the backfield for Line Breaker. The Librarian will wings and null zone against high priority targets for the Devastators, and the Vanguard and Champion can be held back for Veil of Time if needed, or wings if is failed. The Heavy Flamer Devastators screen the multi-meltas and engage important screens, while the Meltas target high priority armor. I mean, Meltas to target high priority stuff seems to be a staple of this edition, right? Like, I run a bunch of Meltas. I feel like everybody, if you want to be competitive at the moment, you kind of have to run some Meltas. The Sangri Guard will deep strike and are floaters for targets in turn 2 and 3, or to counter deep strike. Do you know, I really like keeping the Sangri Guard more defensively than deep strike, but I mean, it's up to you. Everything else will start on the board. The Incursors will deploy in the midfield objective or screen my backfield depending on the mission. The Centurions advance towards the centre for Oath of Moment, a midfield objective, and or to provide anti-horde fire. It's pretty much how I use Centurions. I like them. I mean, they're kind of just the same as Aggressors, right? If you don't want to do it with Centurions, you can probably do it with Aggressors. The Priest moves with the... I think my alt formatting. Centurions with an eye towards moving to the vanguards of Devastators in turn 2, depending on enemy fire. Dante moves with a jump pack vanguard, giving them or either Devastators rerolls in turns 2 and 3. And the Whirlwind sits on the backfield and does Whirlwind things, yes. For secondaries, I generally pick Oath of Moment, Linebreaker, Assault on all fronts, Sword of Sanguinius, or the Mission Secondary. I think Sword of Sanguinius is often overlooked. I don't often score the full 15, but it's aggressive as a list, and it's a consistent 10 with the added tendency of making the challenge character run away from my drop pod units. To get 10 first, it's not Sword of Sanguinius, is it? It's called Blade of Sanguinius. But to get 10, what is the actual wording on that? Because I don't use that all that often. Well, in fact, I've never actually used it. Blade of Sanguinius. Score 5 victory points at the end of the battle if each of these conditions. The model that accepted the challenge was destroyed. The model that accepted the challenge was destroyed by a melee attack. And then the model that accepted the challenge was destroyed by a melee attack made by the model that issued the challenge. Okay, so if you kill the enemy warlord in melee, you basically get 10 points. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, it might be a little bit annoying if you have, like, an Infernal Pistol and you accidentally kill him with the Infernal Pistol, but, I mean... sometimes I guess that you just have to work around that, I guess. To address comments I think you'll make, I feel assaulting from drop pods is viable. Rolling an 8 with a reroll free on the champion or 1 CP Veil of Time for the Vanguard is consistent. I mean, I guess I actually don't know off the top of my head what the charge chances are for an 8 with rerolls. I can check. 2, 3, 4. So we're rerolling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at least. So it's a 6. It's a 2/3 chance of making the charge on the 8 with the rerolls. Okay, 65%. My experience is at least one will make the charge. Storm Shield provide survivability if they don't. One of the major benefits of this list is that it's a high threat. Yeah, I mean, if you've got 2 units, chances are one of them is going to make the charge. This tends to force misplays and focus on single units, allowing me almost full board control from turn 1. I know Dante is a controversial pick, but given how I use my captains of buffers and later game cleanup, I don't feel I'm missing out. Made a detailed post on the Discord, but the point I feel is he's buying me 3.5 CP. I read your post, and yeah, I mean, I guess that is the one thing that Dante is doing, right? He is keeping you a lot of CP. So if you think about like my captain, where I have to pay 1 CP I have to pay 1 CP, and then obviously I get my free warlord trait and my free relic. But yeah, I mean, Dante is. Correct me if I'm wrong. Dante doesn't need to. Oh, he does need to be the warlord to give you the 1 CP back, though, right? I was going to say, does he need to be the warlord to give you the 1 CP? Again, I haven't been using Dante that much recently. If your army's battle forged, then when you select this model to be your warlord, all right, so you have to pick Dante to be the warlord to get the extra CP. And thanks for my reviewing your list. And I found your videos in Discord very helpful. Okay, thank you very much for that, Steel Rain. That's very kind. Yeah, do you know what? Making him your warlord is a little bit weaker. Like, because I was thinking that you could not have him as your warlord, get that 1 CP, and then get your free relic and warlord trait elsewhere. Yeah, I guess it's okay. I feel like Dante's okay. You know, if you have a strong enough list around you, I think you can sort of carry him a bit. Or if you're only using him for cleanup, then I think he's okay. But the way I use my chapter master like quite aggressively, then I prefer the one on the bike. But I mean, that's just my personal opinion. All right, so this list starts with 7 of 12 CP wise. We have Commander Dante, who I guess is the Warlord. We have Incursors. We have a company champion who is a hero of the chapter. He has Imperium Sword and Armor Indomitus, and this is the way to basically make that company champion as strong as he can be. I do wonder, I don't know if you have Gift of Foresight elsewhere in your list, but I do wonder if Gift of Foresight might be a slightly better pick here. I mean, reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, 1 save. I think the reroll 1 save might be really nice as well, especially with Armor Indomitus' 3+ invulnerable save option. We then have Devastators with multi-meltas. We also have Devastators with Heavy Flamers, and I guess the Heavy Flamer Devastators are kind of interesting. And then 2-drop pods, obviously, so that's how you're getting both squads of Devastators down the board. We have a Librarian, and it's just a regular Librarian without a jump pack, I guess, because he's coming in from a drop pod. He has an Infernal Pistol and 4 swords, Null Zone, Veil of Time, Wings of Sanguinius, so I guess he's using the Tome of Malkador to do that. Oh yeah, you're right, you'd lose a reroll charge, okay. Can this guy not take an aura, though, where everybody around him gets reroll charges? Is that not the big strength of the company champion? And I know it costs 15 points, but do you not get an extra attack as well? And do you not get some other bonus? I forget what the other bonus is. But the company champion, if he's upgraded to the chapter champion, he gains... The enemy must subtract 1 when they try and hit him in close combat. Thank you for following, Cubehead, appreciate that. Each time this model makes a melee attack against enemy character, you can reroll the wound, and he also gets an additional attack, and he gets 1 more leadership. I guess the leadership doesn't help, but yeah, the Martial Exemplar here, so basically all core and characters within 6 can reroll their charges. Is there a reason that you don't like this that I'm not seeing? Because that might be better than... I guess let's keep going and let's think about this. We also have our Sanguinary Priest, who is a standard Sanguinary Priest. He's pretty great. Hey Mika, nice to see you. We have the Sanguinary Guard with 2 Infernal Pistols, mostly swords and a few axes. We have the Centurions with flamers, and they also have the Bolters. So I have magnetized my Bolters on the Centurions, but I've never actually run them. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but Centurions are rapid fire 6. And because Bolter Discipline got changed, you can't rapid fire at maximum range with Centurions, right? So if they stay still, they can rapid fire 24 inches, which I feel like your Centurions are never going to stay still, right? Because you want to get them in close combat because the drills are so nasty. So for the most part, then it's just 6 bolter shots per Centurion, unless of course you're within half range. But then if you're within half range, it might be dangerous to shoot you who you're planning on charge, because you may end up losing. You may end up killing too many models and making your charge harder for yourself. I'm not entirely sure on the logic behind that, but if you needed to pick up a few points to get that upgrade on the chapter champion, then I would consider dropping a Hurricane Bolter. That would get you. You don't have to have. Pretty sure all. I think it's with the Centurions. It's not an all or nothing pick, right? It's like each Centurion. Let's double check that. I think it's each Centurion can replace their assault launchers. Aggressors, Terminators, Centurions. Any number of models can replace their flamers with melt guns. Any number of models can have each of their Centurion assault launchers replaced with Hurricane Bolters. Yeah, so you could drop a Hurricane Bolter if you needed to get 10 points back. And yeah, that's kind of why I don't take the Hurricane Bolters on Centurions. They're already 165 points for the 3 of them. They're kind of expensive. I mean, it's brilliant if they survive and you can resurrect them and you can heal them. I mean, that's the huge strength of them. But, bolters at 24 inches, just 6 shots. I often have... I guess the way to look at it is like, go watch some of my battle reports, right? quite often I run 2 bike captains, right, and they both have rapid fire bolters on their bikes, right? So you get 4 shots hitting on 2s. Now, I guess 4 shots hitting on 2s, 4 times 0.83, so you hit like 3.33 times against 6 shots hitting on 3s. 6 times 0.66 is 4. So, like, if you think about it, like, I don't think that those bike captains, like, occasionally they take a wound with their bolters. So I guess each Centurion is occasionally going to take a wound off an enemy with the bolters. Like, I mean, I guess if they can rapid fire, sure, but 12 inches is pretty... I find people don't ever want to be within 12 inches of my Centurions, just when they have the flamers, right? Let alone if they had bolters as well. So, yeah, I have a question mark over the bolters. I mean, could the Centurion squad hold your backline and cover? I mean, they could, but they'd just be stood there not shooting, not doing anything, really. The strength of this Centurion assault squad, I think, is getting to the middle of the map and holding it for Oath of the Moment. You know, toughness 5, 2+ save, works super well if you can get them inside that Psychic Fortress bubble as well. Alright, and then we have Vanguard veteran squads. 1 squad with jump packs, like, what is it, 5 guys with lightning claws, 2 with Thunderhammers and Infernal Pistols, and then Vanguard Veterans, Sergeant with Thunderhammer and Infernal Pistol, another guy, so basically 2 with Thunderhammers and Infernal Pistols in both squads, and then 5 with Lightning Claws, 1 with Jump Packs, 1 without, and then the Whirlwind with the Vengeance Launcher. And yeah, we've talked a little bit about the Vengeance Launcher, Steel Rain. I don't know if you watched my video a few weeks ago on the Whirlwind. Good afternoon, Doctor, how are you doing? I don't think that the Vengeance Launcher is worth additional 10 points. I don't think that it gives you enough over the course of the battle to feel like it's worth it. On paper, it sounds like it's a lot better, right? Like -1, 2 damage as opposed to no AP, 1 damage, but when you actually math hammer it out, you barely make an extra wound against most targets, and that's per turn. So if your Whirlwind survives the whole game, you maybe make like 5 extra wounds. I mean, I guess for 10 points it's okay, but I feel like there is better ways you could spend those 10 points. So let me think about this. You've got the 2 drop pods, 1 pod coming in with a squad of Vanguard veterans, 1 pod coming in with a bunch of Devastators. We also have the company champion coming in. I think it would be better to replace this and give him the aura for the rerolls, help you get those Vanguard veterans in. Centurions with Meltas are kind of the same issue as the Flamers, right? Like, it bumps up the points cost something crazy, you know, like 10 points more per model, I think it is. And, you know, here's the thing, if the Centurions get into melee combat, they're going to destroy just about anything, right? Because they are strength 10, -5, 3 damage, and with Red Thirst, they're going to wound everything on 2s. Like, they're going to wound everything in the game, and I don't know if there is any toughness 10 units, so I don't think there is. I've never fought against anything that's toughness 10. I know that some of the super heavy tanks are toughness 9, so even against those super heavy tanks, toughness 9, you're going to wound them on 2s with the Centurions. They're going to do a flat 3 damage per piece. 3 Centurions has the ability to put out 48 wounds in the close combat turn. So my question is, why spend the 30 points on Meltas, right? Like, the enemy are going to have to deal with them anyway. The Flamers will let you take out any chaff units. The Flamers also make it super difficult for the enemy to charge the Centurions, right? Because you can overwatch and get 66 shots with the Flamers, remembering that the Flamers are also Assault D6. So if it's any squad of 6 or more models, then you get a minimum of 18 hits in Overwatch. So 18, like... I use the Centurions with the Flamers against Sisters of Battle with the point of basically stopping Repentia charging me. You know, so like if he's going to charge me the Repentia, we're going to get at least 18 hits on them. And I think it's a pretty strong counter against Sisters of Battle because you'd obviously win them on 3s. So the 2 drop pods will cause a bunch of threat, and you'll be able to get the Centurions into the middle of the board easily enough, I would have thought. a little question mark over the Hurricane Bolters. I mean, if they're providing good value for your Steel Rain, then by all means, keep them. I would be tempted to try and make. I think the 15 points you pay for this company champion to make him the chapter champion is worth it. -1 to hit, reroll wounds against enemy characters, an additional attack, and then obviously gives you that bubble of rerolls as well, which I think is pretty nice. The fifth. To get that bubble of rerolls, I guess you drop Imperium Sword, which loses you attack, but by paying the extra 15 points, you get one attack back anyway. So it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? You could lose one Hurricane Bolter and you could lose a Vengeance Launcher. That's you sorted. I don't think I have too much else to say. I guess, we know Dante's a force multiplier. We know that one squad of Incursors is... one troop unit is fine. It works. If it's full boss, it's generally okay. It could... we talked a lot about OBSEC this week, so we have a dedicated scoring system now for OBSEC, so we'll be scoring this based on the numbers that we shared this week. Devastators with Heavy Flamers is interesting. Not many people are running them. I guess I understand the logic in that you want to just be able to flame out any sort of key enemy firepowers. What are Heavy Flamers at the moment? Strength, Heavy Flamer, Strength 5 -1. Okay, so 4 Heavy Flamers gives you potentially 24 shots, Strength 5 -1. It's not bad. And then the 2 drop pods, they can be dropped obviously offensively or in the middle of the map. 7 Sanguinary Guard, which is sort of fine, and then 2 7-man Vanguard Veteran squads, one with jump packs, one without, which is pretty good as well. Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws are arguably super strong right now, and then the Centurions. So, and the Whirlwind as well. So it's a variant, I guess. -2 in the Heavy Flamers in turn 1. That's very true. I guess you do have Armor Shuribs on both, so I guess you get 5d6 Heavy Flamer shots in turn 1 from the Devastators, and then 10 Multi-Melta shots in turn 1 from the other squad. And the Sergeant has that Combi Melta, which might be useful, but I suppose in turn 1, the Sergeant probably stands still and makes one of the Devastators hits on 3s rather than 4s, right? How do you get Heavy Flamer pieces? They're not provided in the Devastator box. They used to be provided in the Sternguard Veteran box, I believe. And they did used to be provided in the Blood Angels Tactical Squad box as well, which Sternguard... Oh, they don't... Oh, well, they do it, but it's sold out right now. I feel like there used to be a couple of Heavy Flamers in this... There's one for sure. Is it just one? Maybe it's just one in this box. Huh. Then I guess maybe you do eBay, unfortunately. I'm not sure what other... The Tactical Squad and Sternguard, yeah. But I thought it was more than one in the Sternguard box. I used the 4 Heavy Flamers, upgraded the Sergeant weapon to a Combi Plasma and mastercrafted it, giving him the +1 to hit. Giving him... I don't think you can do that, Gary. I think the Sergeant isn't allowed to perform actions if he gives the +1 to hit. Am I wrong here? Have they changed it? In your shooting phase, each time this unit shoots, if it contains a Sergeant, you can select one model in this unit until the end of that phase, and that model... Oh, right, so you can select himself. Holy shit, I didn't realise that. That's an interesting choice, I guess. Huh. Okay, I always assumed that once the Sergeant selected someone, he wasn't allowed to shoot. shows how little I run Devastator squads. Okay, and I guess under that logic, would it not be better to move this Combi Melta into this squad? Because the +1 to hit gives you no advantage, right? So if you move the Combi Melta down here, he can +1 to hit himself, and then this Sergeant +1s to hit the multi-Melta, and the one that he +1s to hit is the one that used the Sheriff on, right? Tiny little optimization there, I guess, Steel Rain, potentially. I suppose it depends on how they get dropped out of the drop pods. Alright, let's have a look at scoring then. And let's think about this. So, OBSEC, we just have the one troop choice. So we normally hit... We're saying one troop choice gives us 6.5. I mean, we have drop pods, which we could arguably drop onto like objectives, and then they just sit there. And we have the Whirlwind as well, which again can sort of sit in an obscured position, scoring stuff. So maybe you can get a 7, but usually we can go 6.5 if we just have that one OBSEC unit. Against screens, I guess, you're going to do pretty well, right? You've got all those flamers in turn 1 that you could potentially get rid of a bunch of screens. You have the Centurions with the Bolterite, the Hurricane Bolters as well, and the flamers can get rid of screens. I mean, to a certain extent, the Whirlwind can help as well. So I guess your anti-horde, anti-infantry, it's pretty strong, and you get sort of an alpha strike advantage here. Because if you do the drop pods correctly, you can then set up the heavy flamers to almost be in a perfect position. You can flame out really hard, and if there is still screens left, I mean, you can charge them with either. I mean, you could maybe finish them off with your company champion, or maybe even get in with Vanguard veterans. Against vehicles, again, then you're in pretty good position, right? You've got those 10 multi-meltas. You have this librarian who can potentially have null zone, and potentially you can have a turn 1 null zone, which would be pretty interesting. You also have the Sangre Guard, Commander Dante. I mean, you've got a Psyker with a few things there, like he can smite, he has the Force Sword. 4 hammers across the 2 Vanguard veteran squads as well, so, I mean, how many damage 3 weapons have we got then? We've got 2 4 hammers, we have the 3 drills for the Centurions, we have 2 Infernal Pistols here, so we've got 9. We've got Infernal Pistol here, we've got 10. We then have 4 multi-meltas, so that gives us 14. So we're actually really good, and then Dante's Pistol as well. So we're actually pretty good. We have 15 3 damage or more weapons. And I think I was saying that like probably 12 plus was pretty good for that. So I guess like you probably get like a 9 for killing monsters and infantry. If we were if there was more ways to buff your multi-melted Devastators, so I'd probably give you a 9.5. But I guess in turn 1, there's probably not going to be any way to buff them because Dante's going to arguably be off the board unless maybe he does some sort of flying maneuver to catch up with them. So probably like a 9, and mobility I guess is generally pretty good, but obviously once the drop pods happen and then everything's spilled out, the mobility does drop off a bit, so probably like an 8. And then specialization, specializations when we talk about like, does this list do anything bad or poorly, or is it all focused in one section? And I don't think it is. I think it's like 15 3 damage weapons makes me feel pretty confident about it. The tweaks that I've mentioned, like the Vengeance Launcher, these Hurricane Bolters, the Chapter Champion, moving the Melta Gun around or whatnot, they're all sort of superficial tweaks. So I think it's like a 9 in there as well for specialization. Like I don't think there's much that we were doing wrong in this list. Let me look at that again, like the overall score then. What have we got? 999, a little bit down on mobility and a little bit down on objective holding. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can build a list that scores high throughout everything really, but generally I pretty like it. It's very different from the lists I play Steel Rain, but I mean we've talked a bunch, and you've told me how that you're winning a lot of games with your lists as well. And I think if I scored my list, I'd probably be around like 43 again. So I think you can make a really strong list at this point. I mean, the 9-inch bubble for Dante is nice. The additional CP he can give you is nice. But, like, I'm just wondering if there would be a way where... Yeah, like, so you basically have 12 CP in this battle then. Like, what makes you feel like you need 12? Like, what are you spending all 12 on, would be my question. Because I'm starting my games, or I was starting my games with 9, and a few of my games I got to the end of them with a couple left. I think one of the games we won convincingly, we got to the end with 3 left, but Auspex Scan can still target the squad getting out of the pod, so using 2 is better than just 1. Yeah, Auspex Scan, it's going to be okay, I guess. I suppose it depends on what the enemy has, but you would just try and place them where the Auspex Scan counter wasn't that big a deal. Hey Reziel, good afternoon, how you doing? Yeah, I don't think I've got much else to say. I think I'm trying to think, like, if you did drop the Vengeance and you dropped the Hurricane Bolters, and that's 40 points, and you upgraded the Chapter Champion, you got 25 points left. Is there something else you could do to make this list a little bit stronger? I just wonder if there was I'm wondering if there was a way to get Rights of War in here, because I think if you had Rights of War, this could be super awesome. And I guess there was other people talking about potentially mastercrafting something. You know, like one of these Vanguard veterans could have a mastercrafted Thunderhammer. If you felt like you wanted a 4 damage Thunderhammer on one of these squads as well. Since having the extra CP, I've been able to Angel Sacrifice when I need to, which is clutch, more interrupts in the strat to have the multi-melted dev not count as moving. Oh yeah, that is a good call, I guess. The stratagem that lets the multi-melted devs not count as moving. And I guess that maybe leaves you some points for the stratagem where you can do actions when they've counted as... There's one where you can still shoot and do an action, right, as well. Yeah, we're just finishing up the first list, Mike. Yeah, so okay. I think it's a decent list, Steel Rain. Superficial changes, I guess, I've made. Tony rated this as 42, I think he said. Maybe 42 is a tiny bit low, but I don't know where else I could give you another half point. Maybe it's a 42.5. But, I mean, it's hard for me because I don't play Devastators. Typically, I have a bunch of Devastators, but I don't play them. And I don't typically play drop pods either. So, hard for me to score it exactly. And there are Sheriffs in both Devastator squads, yes. Cool, but yeah, no, a pretty solid list. I'd like to know how you get on compared to your other one. You know, play a bunch of games and let me know if you're going to change it. And if you do change it, please submit it again and we'll look at it again and see if we can determine how it's stronger now than it was before, if that makes sense. Because I think that's what people want to know, right? Like, how do you make a list stronger? Like, and I guess that's what I'm trying to do with my list as well. So I have the same one troop choice, and my way to try and make my list stronger, I think, is going to be to try and integrate Rights of War. And I guess you can't do that with Dante, but like, I do think there is an option here where your warlord isn't Dante. He's just a jump character. And I think we made one a few weeks ago, and it was like the top HQ. Maybe I've still got the slides, and we can quickly look at it. We made one. You know, like you can make a jump you can make a jump chapter master with a master crafted relic blade for 160 points. Now, you could drop the master. You don't need to have a master crafted relic blade on him. That was just my choice, and you don't need to have warlord gift of foresight on him. You could have gift of foresight and give him rights of war. That might be one way to do it. And it would just probably cost you, I guess it costs you like 1 CP, maybe 2. But yeah, I mean, it's fine, I guess. So I guess let me know how you feel about the OBSEC, because the OBSEC is a big question mark that we've been talking to about dropping the Centurions for some Plasma Hellblasters or Inceptors. Yeah, I mean, maybe you just need to try dropping the Hurricane Bolters and the Centurions as well, because I've had great value out of those Centurions, but I run them as cheap as they can be, basically. And I use them, they're very much, for me, they're distraction Carnifex, right? They're just there to soak up a bunch of fire and let my other units do stuff. So, okay, thanks for the list, Steel Rain. Hopefully, maybe we give you some ideas of things that you could maybe improve. And I guess we'll move on to list number 2 for today, which is by Tony. Okay. Alright, so Tony says, Centurions are just frustrating for me. So many additions, they could have been great for us. Now we get them, they're decent. I do agree, dropping them for Plasmas. Maybe I need to just bite the bullet and paint my Inceptors, right? My Plasma ones. Maybe I will once I've painted up the stuff that I'm working on at the moment. I haven't felt like I needed OBSEC. I've got enough killing power to get stuff off objectives thanks to the review. Yeah, okay. I mean, I've felt the same way. I haven't felt too much like I needed OBSEC. I needed it against that Necron list where every unit was OBSEC. But against most of the other lists I fought, I haven't felt super needy about OBSEC, I guess. Alright, so let's have a look at Tony's list. So this is a full-on competitive tournament-style list. It needs to be able to take on all corners, and to do that, I have to make some sacrifices. Alright, so let's check it. So list number 2. Librarian with a Combi Melta, Force Sword and a Jump Pack, Chief Librarian, and the Psychic Mastery to get +1 to all Psychic tests, Null Zone, Veil of Time, Psychic Fortress, and Armor Indomitus. Right, so basically he's kind of in a Terminator armor, this Librarian. He's got the extra wound and he's got the 2+ save. So we'll start with that. We then have the Primaris Chaplain on the bike, who has the Artisan of War and the Gift of Foresight and the Mantra of Strength, and the Benediction of Fury, and the Adamantium Mantle. So this is very much the Smash Chaplain. Cheap and tough. And I guess I would agree with that, right? Like, he's toughness 5, he's 7 wounds, he can reroll 1 save, he has a 5+ feel no pain, he has that 3 damage Crozius with 6 is doing mortal wounds, and he can also +1 strength it. I mean, for 115 points, this chaplain on a bike is pretty awesome. Mitch says, I always play my Blood Angels against Admech and I really struggle to survive their shooting. Are there any strategies to stay alive with my key units? I mean, I feel like against Admech, or against any heavy shooting army, Mitch, deployment's going to be key, right? You need to basically be deploying units into cover and making it as difficult as possible, or rather, maybe not cover, maybe obscuring positions is better. You need to be making it as difficult for us, like in turn 1, if he goes first, there should almost be nothing that he can shoot against, right? You should have everything deployed where like he can get line of sight on nothing. I mean, that's not always possible, and if he does get line of sight on something, it will potentially die, but you should be deploying super defensively, and then you should be using your jump units to jump from cover to cover, and you should be advancing into the cover again to try and cut down as much as possible on being shot. I guess, like, I played a game against Iron Hands a few weeks ago where you had that crazy super heavy tank. So, I mean, if you find that battle on this channel, you'll see it took me forever to deploy in that game, and everyone was making fun of me for how long it took to deploy, but it was just that. I was like, I know anything that he can see, he was going to shoot off the table in turn 1. So sometimes you have to try and do something to deal with that. Alright, we then have infiltrator squad, sorry, this is a patrol detachment. So we have the single infiltrator squad to hold the backfield and hopefully redeploy when needed. We have 2 5-man Lightning Claw Vanguard veterans, which are standard, and then we have 1 attack bite with multi-melta, fast with a big gun. I guess this is okay, having them as 2 separate squads. I've been running mine as 1 squad for the revives, but I guess there is advantages to running them as a 2 and a 1, right? Because wounds would not overflow into the other squad. I guess an ideal world would probably be running attack bikes 2 and 2, but yeah, not many people are running 4 attack bikes, I guess. We then have our Librarian Dreadnought with the Meltagun, and he's quickening and wings, and he's also got the Iron Resolve, which is cool. I like mine with Iron Resolve, but I was thinking of, in my new list, I will have Rites of War here instead. We then have the Primaris Tech Marine, who is the Master of the Forge, so he can fix up any Dreadnoughts and he can grant +1 to hit for Leviathan. We have a Leviathan Dreadnought with the Volkite, the Siege Drill, and the Grav Bombard, and I guess it's -1 CP to include that because it's Martial Legacy. We have 2 Redemptors, which I generally like Redemptors a lot. They do a good amount of firepower. They have a good amount of clear as well with the Stormbolters. On the Gatling Cannon is pretty good now since they changed it to Heavy 8. There's a shed load of combat potential if anyone's stupid enough to charge them. That's very true as well. I mean, that's another reason to love the Redemptors, right? Their fists can do 6 damage a swing, which is pretty great. Krychek says OBSEC has never come up once. Okay. And I haven't used Hellblasters or Intercessors yet. I haven't needed to, but I do like the Inceptors. Yeah, I mean, I think Inceptors perform really well if you do the Math Hammer on them. Tony, an option is to drop the Chaplain for the Sanguinary Priest and stick them in a single unit. All right, I didn't realise you didn't have a Sanguinary Priest. That's interesting. It seems like every list we look at is Sanguinary Priest based. We have the swords over the axes. We have the 2 more attack bikes. We have the Whirlwind. Obviously, we don't expect it to kill much, and we spend 4 CP. Let me think about that again. So, Librarian, Chaplain on a bike, Infiltrators, 2 Vanguard Veteran squads, 1 attack bike, Librarian Dreadnought, Primaris Tech Marine, 3 more Dreadnoughts, 2 Redemptors, Leviathan, 7 Sanguinary Guards, attack bikes, heavy support, and all these units are in the top. All these units are very strong right now for Blood Angels. They're very strong in general. And this is what we were chatting about other night on the Hobby Hangout, whereas like some people will say this isn't a Blood Angels list, but I think this is a really, really strong list, right? Like, I don't care that it's including Dreadnoughts, I don't care that it's including attack bikes and multi-meltas, or even a Whirlwind, right? These are the strongest picks that we can pick right now, so whoever's saying it's not a Blood Angels list and is just want to run full close combat, I think they're wrong. So this is the OBSEC is overrated tournament list. I've played a lot of games and watched a lot and noticed that objectives rarely seem to be held by troops, more often than not the fact or elites clearing units, neither of them normally OBSEC. Yeah. Don't throw doubt in my mind, because I was gonna run my Leviathan Dreadnought with Rites of War, and I have been one of the people who was championing running Iron Resolve in the Leviathan Dreadnought, because the Librarian Dreadnought Leviathan, because I think that makes him super strong, making him 9 wounds, giving that 6+ feel no pain. It essentially, I guess, makes him like 10.5 wounds, so it adds about 25% to his survivability. You have a Tech Marine who can fix up that Dreadnought, I guess, so maybe in this list it's even more so Rites of War might be better, but Iron Resolve is good. Hey chat, I have a second box of Inceptors, already have 3 Plasma ones. Should I go for Plasma or go for Bolter? I mean, that's a very tough call. Some people really like the Bolters. I think it's Reziel that runs the Bolters, and the Bolters are a bit cheaper. I think chat needs to decide. I can't tell you. Bolters for competitive. Sorry, Bolters for friends, Plasmas for competitive. I mean, I guess so. So breakdown. 490 points in shooting, 490 points in melee, 415 points of shooting, 700 points of characters. Oh, sorry, balanced output unit, 700 points, characters 520. Anti-infantry, we have bolters, whirlwind, redemptors. Anti-tank, redemptor, plasma, melta, bigger melee. Obsec, we don't have much. Movement, fast bikes, fast sanguinary guard, vanguard veterans, flying dreadnought, fight last, whirlwind, veil of time, specialization, many units are versatile. Thanks for doing the breakdown for me. Tony, let me think about 3 damage weapons real quick then. 2 multi-meltas here, 2 macroplasmas here, the Grav Flux Bombard here, that's 5. Tetmarine has a 3 damage weapon, I'm sure. I mean, I know it's pretty random with his sword. Another Melta and 2 more here from these guys, another here from this, and then another and another. So it's about 10 or 11, so I guess it's in a good... It's a good state. 4 sword, smite, benediction of fury, that's 3. Multi-melta 4. Dreadnought 2 more, which would be 5, 6. Leviathan Redemptor, yeah, it's 9, 11. And then I guess these things in melee combat as well. So yeah, potentially like 14 3 damage or more weapons, which I think is important. I like that as well. I think players who dismiss OBSEC are just ignoring that it's, in fact, constantly in play whether we're paying attention or not, and players who tech into heavy OBSEC are usually limiting their power. Yeah, I think you're right. OBSEC is just finding the balance, and I think that's what Friday's video was trying to do. Talk about how much OBSEC you need in your list to really balance it out. Okay, so let's have a think about this list in terms of scoring. And it does have the one troop choice, which are infiltrators, which are slightly stronger than before, and we do have the whirlwind, so I guess we're going to go 7 on that as well. So OBSEC is a bit weaker, but I believe it's fine. I mean, yeah, I think we need to keep the OBSEC score the same, but I think you can win tournaments, right, with an OBSEC score of like 7 or 8. It's not a big deal. Anti-horde infantry, then I mean we have a lot in this list. Like you've got the 2 redemptors, you've got the whirlwind, you've got the Leviathan. I feel like it's pretty decent. I guess you've got sanguinary guard bolters and all sorts of other stuff as well. So probably like an 8-5. I think the other list wins slightly because it had like probably like, or the previous list is slightly stronger because it had potentially like 70 flamer shots each turn as well. But I mean, I think this is absolutely fine. Anti-monster infantry I think is pretty great. Meltaguns, all those dreadnoughts will do work. The fact that we can repair the dreadnoughts and make some of them hit on 2s is brilliant. So yeah, I think. And it was an absolute boatload of 3 damage weapons as well. I think it's like a 9... Is it a 9-5, maybe? The reason I think I prefer it... Yeah, I think the reason I think I've typed something here. Yeah, okay, sorry. I think the reason I think I prefer it is the 2 plasmas and the Grav Bombard and then all the bikes. I mean, heavy onslaught cannons can do damage against armor. Heavy twin Volkite Cavaliers can do decent damage as well with their mortal wounds. But you do have those 3 crazy 6 damage potential fists on the dreadnoughts, and with 3 dreadnoughts, you're arguably going to get some of them into close combat. So, yeah, maybe like a 9-5. Mobility, I think, is slightly lower on this list because dreadnoughts, I wouldn't say, are super mobile, especially if any of them get profiled. Like if the Leviathan gets profiled, it goes down to like a 5-inch. Then I think it even goes down to like a 3-inch move. So we've got the 3 dreadnoughts that aren't really mobile. But, I mean, that's about it, I suppose. The Whirlwind isn't mobile, but it doesn't need to be. So I guess mobility is about the same, probably an 8. I'd say like an 8. And then specialization, I think this is pretty much the same like as well. So I think this is like a 9. 3 dreadnoughts all with duty eternal. And a tech marine to heal them. I mean, I'm kind of just trying to decide if I like that more than I like the Sanguinary Priest, right? Like, a lot of people run the Sanguinary Priest. I say 90% of the lists we look at run the Sanguinary Priest. And the Sanguinary Priest with pretty much any good solid infantry unit is like tier A, or it's like a top tier play, right? A Tech Marine with 3 Redemptors, or 2 Redemptors and Leviathan, all of which are difficult to kill in a single turn due to Duty Eternal. Could it? I don't know. It's I like both these last 2 lists. I think they're very similar. I think if for me, it's like, is the Tech Marine going to be able to be in the position he needs to be in to make those heals and repairs? And if he is, then this list is going to be super strong. I think it's pretty strong anyway. 3 dreadnoughts, or 4 dreadnoughts, I guess, if you include the Librarian Dreadnought, is a lot that the enemy needs to burn through to get the list dealt with. Yeah, so I think it's like a 9 as well. I mean, like, what you end up, what you get for having all these dreadnoughts, you lose a little bit of mobility and possibly a little bit of specialization. But yeah, I mean, tournaments aren't really going on here at the moment, so I guess when you guys play some tournaments, come back and tell us how you get on. I think both these lists are going to probably be some of the highest scoring ones that we see today. I generally like both of them. I think they can both be pretty good. How many CP did you start this list with? Did it say somewhere? Oh yeah, down here. So you spend 4 before you get going. And it's 2 patrol detachments, isn't it? So you're starting with 6 then. Oh no, this is a patrol and a vanguard, sorry. Yeah, so you're starting with 5. Okay, yeah, then I think 42 for this is about right. If you'd started with a few more CP, I'd probably have you a little bit higher, but yeah, I think about 42 seems to be about right for that. Oh, you're starting with 4. What am I missed then? I thought this meant you were spending 4 and then 3 CP for the Vanguard. See, I start with 4 and I don't like it, Tony. I think 4 is a little bit, it's a little bit tight. Oh yeah, because sorry, the Martial Exemplar isn't in this list. Yeah, so okay, you're starting with 4. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I guess 42 is right. 4. I mean, sure, I've been winning games with 4 Martial Legacy, but yeah, it's. I do think that 5 is probably the minimum that we want to start lists with. And that's what I'm going to aim to do in my new list, right? We're gonna aim to start with 5, and I know it doesn't sound like much 4 to 5, but I do think it just gives you a little bit flexibility more, because quite often in those early turns you want to save on to 2 CP, right? So that you can do counter offensive, or at least I do. I always try and be ready to do counter offensive. I beat Andrew so many times because he never saves any CP for counter offensive, and I said to him, against his Sisters of Battle list this week, I was like, when he was spending some CP in like the third turn, I actually said to him, like, Andrew, are you sure? Because if you do this, you leave nothing for counter-offensive. And I was like, we're about to go into turn 3. You know that I'm going to make charges on you all across the whole entire board, and you're just not going to be able to interrupt at all. It makes my life super easy, right? Like, I don't have to worry. I'd just be like, I will charge everything. I don't have to worry about any of the retaliation. So I guess if you think about it this way, if you're going to use suppression fire a couple of times in the early game, then you only really have CP left for one counter-offensive, and you can't do anything else starting with 4. I mean, maybe you can do like one reroll here or one reroll there, but it's pretty limiting. So I think it's better to start with 5, and I just think it. Yeah. So okay, I think 42 is a fair score for this. Maybe you just have to do, like I just told you, I was buying a 3rd Redemptor. I mean, maybe you just have to go 3 Redemptors on this, Tony. Would that be stronger? If you did do a 3rd Redemptor, if you think about it this way, 3rd Redemptor would free up 40 points. You could then switch those points into your Sanguinary Priest that we talked about. And then, would the Sanguinary Priest be better here than the Tetmarine? It's questionable, I guess. Or worst case, you can get another Sanguinary Guard or something like that. I would probably go for that, though. In that, I don't think a Gravflux Bombad does all that much more damage than a Macro Plasma. Obviously, the Plasma is a little bit swingy, but like overall, it's pretty similar. And the 2 Stormbolters and the Onslaught Cannon, they're probably comparable to the Twin Volkite. The Twin Volkite has the potential to do more, but it does have that 0 AP. So the 0 AP probably gets modified out by the -1 AP on the Onslaught. So yeah, it's probably 6.5 a dozen. And if you do have 5 points left over, you can throw rocket pods on or something, right? Okay, hopefully that was useful, Tony. And thanks for the submission. I like Dreadnoughts a lot, though. I think Dreadnoughts are they're in a great place at the moment in 9th edition, I guess. So yeah, I appreciate the list submission. And yeah, you can let me know if you guys are talking about it being a tournament list. Let me know if you win some tournaments with these lists. I'd love to hear that. Hey, Torzen, thanks for tuning in, man. Nice to see you. Good afternoon. How close does a Tetmarine need to be to fix the vehicle? It's 3 inches, I think, and it's also 3 inches at the start of the command phase to awaken the vehicle, which is give us it +1 to hit. Now, this is why 3 inches for the awaken, yeah, and 3 inches for the repair. And if you are the Master of the Forge, which Tony had there, it means that you always repair a flat 3 damage, which is pretty great. This is why the Primaris Tetmarine is better than the regular Tetmarine wherever he is, because the advantage on the Primaris Tetmarine is his main gun, the Forge Bolter, is Assault 3, which means if you think about your Dreadnoughts usually move like, 8 to 10 inches, probably. So Primaris Tetmarine will not be able to keep up with them and keep within 3 inches unless he's advancing. So this is why the Primaris one's better than the regular one, because the regular one just has that, basically, bolt gun, I guess. And obviously, he won't be able to fire at all if he advances to keep up. Whereas this guy can still fire, which is essentially a 3-shot heavy bolter. So he can still fire his heavy bolter if he assaults. So it's pretty useful. So the Primaris Tetmarine is better than the regular Tetmarine now, I think. Okay, so moving on to list number 3 for today, Jack Walker, and you're very welcome, Tony. Hopefully you guys get to play some. I know you guys are waiting to play some games because of COVID. Hopefully the restrictions are on their way out, and you guys can play soon and let me know how you get on. Looking forward to hearing about that. So, Jack Walker is up next, and Jack has built a battalion. So this is the first battalion we're going to see today, and he has 1 extra relic, and he has a captain who has a Gift of Foresight and a jump pack and a storm shield and a thunder hammer. So kind of an older style captain. And he's got hero, yeah. So, and then we also have Mephiston, who is Primaris, who is Quickening, Shield of Sanguinius, and Wings. And then we have our Sanguinary Priest, who is upgraded. He is the Warlord. He has the Teeth of Terra. He is the Artisan of War for the Artificer armor. I don't really agree with these picks on the Sanguinary Priest. I think the Sanguinary Priest's best not in combat. He's best hanging out behind your units. Sure, I throw mine into combat sometimes in like turn 4 or 5, if there's like 1 or 2 models maybe that need to be killed. But in the early game, I'm not going to have mine in combat. You're not going to be able to shoot mine either because I'm going to position him so he can't be shot. So I feel like Teeth of Terra, Artificer armor, maybe are kind of wasted. If I was going to give him anything to make him more survivable, I would give him the Armor Indomitus over the Artificer armor, right? The Armor Indomitus obviously gives him that same 2+ save, but it gives him an extra wound, and it gives him that ability to turn on that 3+ invulnerable save if you really need it, which I think is better than a 5+ throughout the game. You have to be hit with -3 AP or more for your Artificer armor to matter. So, like, how often are you getting hit by -3 AP, really? He'll usually die to stuff like -2, so I think the Armor Indomitus is a better choice here, and I wouldn't make him my Warlord either. I'd just make him Hero of the Chapter and just not have, like... This Sanguinary Priest really shouldn't be in combat. Maybe you guys disagree in the chat, but for me, I really don't think the Sanguinary Priest needs to be in combat. We win games, we've won a lot of games, and I think in all the games we've played, maybe like 4 or 5 times the Sanguinary Priest had been in combat. And usually when he gets involved in combat, it is when, like, I think at the end of one of the games, there was like 3 infiltrators on an objective, and he was like, right, I think my Sanguinary Priest can probably kill these 3 infiltrators. So he's going into like low-risk combat, when I'm fighting against infiltrators that have no AP against me, or I guess they have -1 AP from Assault Doctrine, but like, I'm only putting him into combat where, like, I don't really care if he wins the combat, and I'm not worried about it, Like, for the most part, he's just hanging out, providing that aura of Feel No Pain, providing the revives, and I think trying to make him into the combat character is the wrong choice. Originally, I thought about giving him Teeth of Terror and stuff, because he doesn't do much in close combat. So I just wouldn't put him in close combat. I mean, he still has 6 attacks. He still has a 2+ ballistic skill, and once you're in turn 3, he does have that -2 from the chainsword, so it's okay. But yeah, I don't think there's a reason to have him in combat. And yeah, someone's pointing out in the chat that, like, it makes sense to have him the Warlord if he's going to be near Sanguinary Guard to get the +1 to hit. But I mean, I imagine your captain is going to be near the Sanguinary Guard as well. So, if anything, I would probably be playing the Priest more defensively. Like, I might just jump him into cover and then bring him out when he needs to heal or something. And sometimes I'll daisy chain models back to a piece of cover so he can be hiding in the cover and still give the models the 6+ Feel No Pain. I usually do that with my Centurions. I usually do that with my Bikes. So, do you know what? I have some Sanguinary Guard on my desk. I'll show you what I mean. So if this... Let me flick this here. Oh, shit. Imagine that this corner of this book here is a piece of cover, a wall. I'll have my Sanguinary Guard sat here, my Sanguinary Priest sat here in the cover, so, like, no one shall see him. And then probably outside of the cover, I'd have this guy, 3 inches from him. This would be one squad of guys, whatever. Usually in my case, it might be attack bikes. Over here, this might be a Centurion, again, 3 inches. So it's like, this guy is providing his buffs, his Feel No Pain auras to both these squads, but this guy is untargetable for the most part, right? Because he's still within 3 inches of these squads, so he could only be shot if he is the closest visible model, and he's not even visible. He's usually in an obscuring position, right? So, like, I think it's 100% the wrong call to try and make him into a combat character. He doesn't need to be. He can do combat if you want at the end of the game, when you're confident you've won the game, or you really think that you need him to try and win the game, I guess. Then you can use him. Alright, troop-wise, we have 1 squad of Assault Intercessors, 1 squad of Incursors with the Mine, one infiltrator squad and one intercessor squad. And, straight away I probably say that you have one too many troop choices. I talked about this before. Troops are troops for a reason. Elites are elites for a reason, right? Elites will kill more things than troops, typically. So I don't think you need 4 troop choices. I would get rid of one of them straight away. Pick 3, because you need 3 for the battalion. And I think if we have to talk about the weak links here, then I guess the weak link are either your intercessors or your assault intercessors. And the reason they are the weak links is because they will have to move through the battlefield, whereas then cursors and infiltrators can deploy in concealed positions. So these ones are more likely to be easily seen by the enemy and shot off the board. So if you... And saying that, assault intercessors can get a lot of attacks, they can do a lot of work with chainswords, but if everything else in your army is stuff like Death Company with jump packs, Sanguinary Guard with jump packs, attack bikes, Inceptors, all these sort of fast-moving units that can jump from position of cover to position of cover, then something will need to be in the open, and if the thing in the open is your assault intercessors, then they will be shot and killed. So that's why I recommend Phobos troops pretty highly, and obviously guerrilla tactics gives them an insane amount of mobility, but 4 troop choices seems like one too many. We then have a small death company, 2, 4, so it's just a 5-man death company, 1 hammer, the rest chainswords, and this is fine. I mean, I was running this a lot in 9th edition, and I was running this in one of my lists that went on a win streak, so I ran this in my super heavy list that did an 8-game win streak. I think it's fine, but I prefer now to run Lightning Claw Vanguard Veterans with Storm Shields. They come out with the exact same 140 points, and they are quite a lot more survivable. And I think a lot of people have moved towards those Vanguard Veterans. We did a video on the exact comparison, so you can go watch that video, Jack. And I mean, this is fine, but just check out the video on the Lightning Claw Vanguard Veterans. We then have one Redemptor, and it's got the rocket pods, the macro plasma, the frag storms, which is absolutely fine. But just sometimes, if you only run one dreadnought, you can expect one dead dreadnought. That seems to be how it works, right? Some people really swear by the rule of 2 with dreadnoughts, but I mean, it's a good unit. Redemptors are generally pretty strong, so I would keep it in my list. Why not both, says Reziel, Death Company and Vanguard Veterans? Yeah, I mean, why not both if you have the points? I unfortunately do not have the points. And Camille says the priest as the chief apothecary is a no-brainer. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I just don't know if he needs to be the warlord, because if he's the warlord, then he needs to be near the Sanguinary Guard, which potentially means that he has to be in tough positions, potentially. To give them that +1 to hit, whereas like your captain with your storm shield can be right on the front lines. And I guess that's how I run my warlord, is my captain right on the front lines, making sure that the Sanguinary Guard are getting the buffs that way. Okay, then we have a Sanguinary Guard with a bunch of swords and 1 axe. I mean, I guess I have no idea why you just have 1 random axe in there, but okay, why not? We then have 3 attack bikes with multi-meltas. We have Inceptors, and it's 5 of them, and they're all plasmas. And then we have Eradicators as well. And this may be pushing it in terms of how much shooting we have, right? 165 plus 275 plus 135. 165 plus 275 plus 135. Plus a Redemptor as well. So this list, I guess, has a pretty solid balance between shooting and melee. Now, we have talked before how personally I feel the Librarian Dreadnought is currently in a better state than Mephiston. Mephiston's good at killing infantry, not so much as killing vehicles. But I guess this list has 6 Melta shots here, then another 6 Melta shots here. So that's very decent. Then we obviously have the Onslaught and the Macro from the Redemptor. So I actually don't think this is too bad a list, Jack. I think it's a decent battalion. I think it could be made stronger. Potentially, Librarian Dreadnought is going to provide you more value than Mephiston. I think Chapter Master, and I noticed that this isn't a Chapter Master, I think the Chapter Master is such an important, especially if you're running this much shooting, right? Like, I think the Chapter Master rerolls are hugely... Oh, well, I guess this much shooting plus Redemptor. I think the Chapter Master rerolls are a huge value. If you can... they always feel to me like they get their points back. So I would start by dropping one unit of troops and get yourself a Chapter Master. Now, you can keep him on the jump pack if you want. You can make him more survivable on a bike as well if you want to do that. The cool thing about him being on a bike, which I like, is he's also slightly cheaper in points. But you can do it both ways. And then if you did do that and you still had 50 points spare, what could you do, right? I guess you could add maybe another model to the Sanguinary Guard. You could maybe add another model to the Death Company. You could maybe take the Librarian Dreadnought and upgrade him to Chief Librarian to give him the same 3 powers sort of that Mephiston can have. So I think there's a good few options that you have here. The one thing to say is there is no Whirlwind, so you may get hurt a little bit with your melee units in certain battles and charging. Because you've got no way of countering that fight last. So that's something to consider. And that might be another thing to that might be if you drop one troop choice and drop one Inceptor, then I think you've got enough points to get that Whirlwind in there as well. So a few things that I feel like you could improve. And the notable ones to me probably are the Chapter Master rerolls, the Whirlwind, just for the fight last stratagem, and maybe Mephiston. This is Mephiston. I guess Mephiston, Librarian, Dreadnought are beat stick characters, and a regular Librarian is more of a force multiplier. And I think that Force Multiplier is probably stronger at the moment than Beat Stick. I mean, there is a place for Beat Stick, but this captain here is just a Beat Stick with a Thunderhammer, right? So it's like you've got 2 characters, 2 of your HQs are basically the same character, right? Did you not put Selfless Healer on the Priest? Did I miss that? You put Chief Apothecary, and you put Warlord. Okay, yeah, sorry, I completely missed that. You need to have Selfless Healer on this Priest as well. Thank you for pointing that out, Mark. I don't know how I missed that. I think so many people will submit the Sanguinary Priest as a there's almost no point of making him the Chief Apothecary unless you're going to take the Selfless Healer. I actually don't know what making him a Chief Apothecary does. Oh, does it just give him the three wound heals? Is that what the Chief Apothecary does if you don't take the Selfless Healer? Let me check that. Oh no, it lets him heal 2 units. That's what it lets you do if you don't take the Selfless Healer. You would heal 2 units for D3. Yeah, it's super important to have the Selfless Healer. So you need to take the Selfless Healer on him as well, and probably just make him Hero of the Chapter. Make your captain your Warlord. And if you want, spend 1 CP to give him Angel's Exemplar and make him a little bit stronger. Like, give him a 5+ Feel No Pain from Adamantium Mantle, or upgrade his Storm Shield. I think you could do that as well, could you? Yeah, I think you could give him the Relic Shield that... Oh, what's it called? It upgrades the Storm Shield. It's in the Space Marine book as well. The Shield Eternal, this bearer, yeah, basically just is the same. It gives him a 6+ Feel No Pain. So I think both of those things would be pretty good. And or Chapter Master if you can fit that in as well. And I don't think you need 4 troop choices. I would definitely try and get it down to 3. Shield Eternal, thank you, Adam. Okay, so let's give it a score. And I guess, it does have 4 OBSEC units. And we do aim for like an 8-5 for if you have 3 Phobos, so something like an 8-5. Anti-Horde infantry. I mean, Inceptors are good against that. Attack Bite Bolters, Sanguinary Guard Bolters. I think it's not bad. I think some of the lists we looked at earlier were maybe stronger. Yeah, I mean, the one before with all the Redemptors, I think, was maybe slightly stronger, but then, I mean, 5 Inceptors actually do pull out a ridiculous amount of shots against Horde armies. So, maybe it's an 8-5. What did we talk about? Anti-vehicle, anti-monster. I mean, you've got 6 Meltagons in there. And then the Dreadnought and the Powerful Fist. You've got 1 Thunderhammer on the Captain. And how many 3 damage weapons we've got? We've got 6, 7, 8. Basically, we have 8, so we're a little bit light in 3 damage weapons. So I guess damage against monsters and vehicles is like an 8-5. Mobility, I guess, is like probably an 8 as well. You've got the Eradicators that aren't mobile, and you've got the 2 troop choices that aren't really mobile either. So an 8, and then specialization, I think you are lacking 3 damage weapons here. Like, there's just 8 of them. And I think there's too many troops as well. And then I think 2 of your characters are maybe like doing the same role, really. And they're neither of which are really force multipliers. I mean, the captain kind of is, but I think it could be made better for sure. And then the Death Company, it's annoying that they can't do actions, but I guess we won't score you down on that. So probably like a 7 here, I'd guess, for specialization. Maybe even a 6-5. And that there's too many troop choices. Yeah, do you know what? 6-5, too many troop choices here, I think. So I don't think it's a bad list, and I don't think it would take much to fix it. And yeah, hopefully we touched on a few things how you can definitely make it better, Jack. So thanks for the submission. Hopefully that was helpful. And let's get into list number 4 for today. So that number 4 will be Lloyd Heaton. Okay, and anyone have any comments on Jack's list just before we move on? This is one of the reasons as well that I really like starting my captain on the board. The chapter master rerolls, being able to start a character on the board, give the chapter master rerolls to some heavy hitting unit like the Tap Bikes, like the Eradicators, and then leave them behind, I think is pretty strong. And those rerolls provide so much value for me over the course of a game. Came to 38 for Tony. Okay, so maybe we scored it a tiny bit generously. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So Lloyd then. Lloyd's also going to run a battalion. He's going to run a bike captain, who is the chapter master and the storm shield in the Teeth of Terra, which I think is decent. He's also going to run Mephiston, but this time he's going to take Unleash Rage and Shield of Sanguinius. He's not going to take Wings on Mephiston, which I think is definitely a bad choice. I think Mephiston needs wings. I think, unless, I guess maybe we'll get to it, but I feel like Mephiston does need wings to be effective. And then we have the priest. This time he is a selfless healer, and this priest is going to run Visage of Death. We talked about Visage of Death just on Friday's video about how it's not as good as Rites of War. And I think that is true. So Visage of Death, I guess it's fine, but it would be better if it was just Rites of War. And there is ways that you could probably get Rites of War in here, because, like, what warlord trait does your captain have? He is your warlord, right? So he is allowed a warlord trait, and there isn't one listed. Which is strange, I guess. I guess it's maybe just an oversight, but there could be a warlord trait on here. Good evening, Frank. How you doing? Then in troop-wise, we have 3 squads of assault intercessors, and they all have the plasma pistol upgrade on the sergeant. And I don't like plasma pistols in general, in that, sure, they're strength 7 and they're minus 3, I guess, at 1 damage, but the fact you can never really overcharge them for me just turns me off. Alright, Gary, thanks for watching tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed it. So, and 3 Assault Intercessors. So I bought Indomitus like everybody else, and I got a boatload of Assault Intercessors. I think I actually have 30 of them, and I run 0 of them. And it's not that they don't get a good amount of attacks, it's just they don't have the mobility that I feel like we need. No concealed positions, and if a lot of our Blood Angel stuff is very mobile, the least mobile things are going to get shot off the table, and this seems to be what happens to Assault Intercessors, so I don't run them. Also think running 3 squads of them means that you're never going to be in a good position with your Honor the Chapter. You know, you can only use the same stratagem once per turn. So 3 of the same squad seems like the wrong choice. Incursors and Infiltrators will do better here, probably 90% of the time. I'd watch the video. We've done a video on troops for 9th edition, so I guess you need to maybe check that out, Lloyd. And yeah, the plasmas just seem like wasted points. I am painstakingly repainting a shitload of Sangre Guard because back in the day I made all my Sangre Guard, or I wouldn't say all of them, but I have a good number of them that have plasma pistols that never find their way onto the tabletop, and I have a good number of them with power fists that never find their way onto the tabletop. So the plasmas to me just aren't. When you want to field those Primaris guys like Assault Intercessors, you need to tailor your list for it, fielding an appropriate number of Impulsors. Yeah, I think if you want to field Assault Intercessors, I think you have to field an Impulsor. And then at that point, if you're starting to pay the points for the Impulsor, you probably want something more effective than Assault Intercessors in that Impulsor, like Blade Guard Veterans, so then you're in the horrible position that, like, why would you ever take Assault Intercessors? So yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but that's how I feel about it. Alright, so elite-wise we have Aggressors, and it's Boltstorm Aggressors, 3-man squad. Death Company with, like, 4 Infernal Pistols, a Hand Flamer, a Thunderhammer, a Power Axe, and Jump Axe. Very strange equipped Death Company. Haven't seen a Death Company really equipped like this before. I mean, I guess if they make their charges and they don't die in combat, then they'll be able to do a ton of work with Infernal Pistols, but it's a bit different from what most people would run, I guess. We have the Judicar, who has the Artificer armor, and he has Rights of War. Alright, interesting that we have Rights of War on this guy. I don't know why we don't. I guess we're just missing a Warlord trait off our captain up here. We have the 2 Redemptors, which is what I run. Both have the Onslaught cannons. One has the macro cannon, one has the larger onslaught. I think it's always the correct choice to take the macro plasmas on here. We compared the macro plasmas, even though they are swingy, we compared them against the onslaught, and they did outperform them. I did a video on this as well, Lloyd, so you could check that out. We have a very small 5-man Sangre Guard, and then we have 3-man squad of Inceptors with plasmas, 3-man squad of Outriders, and that's it. Right. So I don't like Outriders at all. They are toughness 5 and they are mobile, but they are just chainswords, and if they do not kill their target on the initial charge, they fall off absolutely horrendously. We've looked into this before. They fall off to a rate of, like, do you know what? Just justification real quick. It is a ton of fall off you take from those Outriders. Like, I want to say it's like 60% fall off after that first turn. And, I mean, I guess that's one of the reasons that I just flat out don't mind them. Alright, cool. Outriders are here. So, let's assume it's turn 3, so they both get +2 attacks. So your Sergeant gets 15 attacks, and your squad guys get 4 attacks. So that gives you 13 attacks on the charge. You get 1 more for the chainsword, so you get 16, and then you get 2 more per model for the turbo for the devastating charge. So when your Outriders charge on turn 3, you get 22 attacks. If they do not kill their enemy, and remember, 22 attacks is actually still less attacks than a standard squad of Assault Intercessors get in turn 3. They get 26. So usually when you run 26 Assault Intercessors into, let's do a little bit of math, right? So we run 26 Assault Intercessors into another squad of Marines. So it's 26 attacks. We hit 17 times, and then with the +1 to toughness, the +1 to wound from the Red Thirst, we wound 11 times. So if we were going to hit other Marines, we would... the other Marines would only save on 5s, so we'd end up doing like 7 wounds. So if a Assault Intercessor squad charged into a squad of, like, a 5-man squad of Inceptors or something, they would kill about 7. Now, your Outriders, which are 150 points, so straight away, like, quite a few more points. They're only going 22, and they're only going to hit 14, so they're essentially only going to kill 6, or do 6 wounds. Which is fine, right? So they do 6 wounds. However, on the following turn, once the Devastator charge falls off, once their attacks on charging fall off, they're actually only going to get 10 attacks now. So they're gonna have 10 attacks. They're only going to wound on 5s this time, and they're going to save. So, like, in the opponent's turn, when you usually get to finish models off, for example, the Outriders aren't going to finish them off. They're only going to do 2 wounds to them. So it's like a squad of Outriders, they fall off. Yeah, I mean, their damage output falls off by like 66%. And I guess they are toughness 5, and they are moving quite a bit more quickly. But if you do come up against some tougher opponents, you're going to find those Outriders get like... they kind of get stalled out pretty quickly. So I've run Outriders a few times at the beginning of 9th edition, and maybe if they could have taken other weapon options, I would have liked them, but I didn't like them. And looking at this list, I don't think a 5-man Sanguinary Guard cuts it in terms of, like, well, 1, surviving, and 2, one, surviving, and 2, doing the damage that you need to do. For example, just last week or whatnot, I ended up fighting against Death Guard, right? And they have, like, Plague Burst Crawlers. Now, 5 Sanguinary Guard will bounce off a Plague Burst Crawler. I would guarantee it almost. And again, we could do some maths there where you've got your 5 Sanguinary Guard, so you get your 25 attacks, and you jump into the Plague Burst Crawler and you hit on 3s, so you get your 16 wounds, and then you wound on 5s because you wound on 4s because it's toughness 8. So, yeah, your 5 Sanguinary Guard jump into a Plague Burst Crawler and only do 8 wounds against it. So, and to me, if you get to a position in the game where your Sanguinary Guard are going to be able to charge that Plague Burst Crawler, bearing in mind the Plague Burst Crawler has, like, the ability to shoot you effectively from long range. It could also shoot you when you're in cover because with its indirect fire. So when you do get to a point where you're going to get to deal with a Plague Burst Crawler, you want to be killing it. You can't have a unit of Sanguinary Guard just like bounce off it and do nothing. Well, I mean, they don't do nothing. Sure, they do 8 wounds to it on average, but it's not enough, right? So I think to start with, I would get rid of Outriders, and I would buff up the Sanguinary Guard to between 7 and 9. I always talk Sanguinary Guard work best between 7 and 9. And other people in the chat are saying Outriders are a bit too limited. So if you buffed up the Sanguinary Guard, let's say with 3 more models, so it's an 8, you've got 60 points left over. What would I do with 60 points with this list? Then I'd probably look at getting some Phobos troops in here. That would cost you like another 15 points. It may be worth also swapping out Mephiston for your Librarian Dreadnought to bring another 3 damage weapon to this army. If we talk about 3 damage weapons in this army, it's going to be pretty low. We have 1 Plasma on the Redemptor and the 2 Fists. We have 4 Infernal Pistols here, which makes it 7. And then, yeah, it's just like 7 or 8. So 3 damage or above weapons is lacking in this list. There is no Whirlwind, or there's no Librarian that can counter Fight Last rules. Personally, I don't think Outriders perform well enough for me. They fall off too hard. And I mean, against certain units, they can do fine, don't get me wrong, and they are toughness 5, so they can wither some firepower. But at the same time, I don't think they justify 150 points. I think before they nerfed them, when they were like 135 points, I thought they were okay, but I actually don't understand why they made them 150 points. Like, I don't see many people running them. And you know what? We have looked at a bunch of tournament-winning lists for Blood Angels recently in 9th edition, and none of those tournament lists included Outriders. I didn't put them in the top 10 units for Blood Angels either. And yeah, then I guess... Oh, do you know what? You do have the Judicar, so you can do some Fight Last shenanigans, and the Judicar does have Rites of War. I do wonder if Artificer Armour is the right choice here. Armour Indomitus might be better, because the Judicar does already have that 4+ invulnerable save in close combat. Yeah, so, I mean, you could maybe do that as well. And then some Phobos troops would be really nice here, some Incursors or some Infiltrators, especially for helping you score your secondaries, right? So I think there's a few improvements that can be made to this list, but and I think you were missing a Warlord trait on your captain, for sure. And I guess Gift of Foresight would be a pretty good one up here. Because Gift of Foresight provides quite a lot of value in terms of keeping that bite captain, who is already survivable, making him even more survivable, right? So I think you could probably do something like that as well. Alright, let's have a look at the scoring this list today. And yeah, okay, so it's a battalion and it's got 3 troop choices. So I think we're looking at like an 8 for troop choices, but all assault intercessors to me is not the right choice for troops. So I would rethink that. I think that all assault intercessors, you're going to end up with some of them doing very little in the battle, either holding an objective and not being able to shoot anything for the pistol, and also dying in no man's land because they have to move through the no man's land. And if Outriders could have some weapon options, they would be great. Yeah, I think, do you know what? If they could have some weapon options, I probably wouldn't have a problem with them. But it just seems in general, like, I don't know why Games Workshop have been so limiting with the weapon options for the Primaris compared to the Firstborn. I'm glad that like most of our troop choices and stuff are still Firstborn, just because the Primaris are limited. Okay, and then next up, I guess we're talking about removing chaff units, and we do have Outriders that can remove chaff. We do have Inceptors that can remove chaff, and we do have a bunch of cannon dreadnoughts. I guess in a way, sort of similar to Tony's list. We have also Boltstorm gauntlets. So I think it's not bad for removing chaff. Probably like an 8, maybe an 8.5. I think we'll go with 8.5. Anti-vehicle and monster, I think, is lower. We have the 1 plasma cannon. We have these infernal pistols in the Death Company, which are going to be super situational because they have to get in close. The Sanguinary Guard squad is too small for my liking. The Aggressor squad, you know, I mean, they have power fists, but it's going to be difficult to get them across the board. And then the Captain and Mephiston aren't really designed to deal with those harder targets. So I think it's like a 7.5. Again, the Redemptors could do work, but getting them across the battlefield is going to be difficult, potentially. And then mobility-wise, I guess the mobility is probably, you know, all the troops are immobile, the Aggressors, the Judicar, the Dreadnoughts. I mean, yeah, so I think it's a 7.5 as well. And then specialization, I think, is we only have 8 3 damage or more weapons. We also have some units that are very questionable, like the Outriders, like all these assault intercessors. These plasma pistols, I think, are dead points. Mephiston is definitely eclipsed right now by the Librarian Dreadnought. I don't remember how much he's eclipsed, but he is definitely eclipsed. Let's have a quick look. I did a spreadsheet on this as well. We have spreadsheets on everything. If you're watching the channel and you're not a member, if you want to get access to all these spreadsheets, then you just need to become a channel member. Early in the game, Mephiston will do, he'll do an average amount of damage, but it does seem like in the late game he is very much eclipsed by Librarian Dreadnought. Bear in mind, if Librarian Dreadnought is ever given Chapter Master rerolls, he is an absolute monster, because his biggest problem is his weapon skill of 3, and the Chapter Master rerolls counter that. And then I guess in terms of survivability, Mephiston survives better against those small arms fire, sure, but against all the other things like Flamestorm cannons, power fists, plasma guns, it seems like Librarian Dreadnought is matching or eclipsing Mephiston. And I guess if you do give him the Iron Resolve, which is what I was talking about, and or he casts Shield of Sanguinius on himself, he is way more survivable than Mephiston, almost a ratio of like 250%, 300, 450%. And Mephiston's damage, I don't think... What is Mephiston's damage at the moment? I thought they normalised it. Or is it still D3? I thought they made it 2. Am I wrong here? Steel Rain. This is how little I've run Mephiston this edition. Oh no, it is still D3. Okay, but yeah, I mean, why it's not flat 3 for Mephiston's sword is beyond me. So okay, he's got one more 3 damage weapon potentially with Mephiston's sword, but remember the Librarian Dreadnought does have that potential 6 damage from his Force Halberd, which is what, D3 plus 3? And then he can have like 10 other attacks from his... I think you can get 11 attacks on the Librarian Dreadnought, right? Because you can get... you get your basic 4, and then you get your 1 with your halberds. So that gives you 5. You get 6 when you charge. You get 7 from Savage Echoes. You can get another 3 from Quickening. So that gives him 10 attacks. So he can do potentially 33 damage when he charges. And I guess Mephiston can do similar, but like his D3 is much more likely to be half or less. Yeah. And I mean, the Duty Eternal just keeps him alive as well. I like it a lot. So I think specialization here is quite low. I think it's like a 6. Like, we need more 3 damage weapons in this list, Lloyd. We also probably need to flip out some of these useless units and rethink some of our troop choices. And potentially rethink the fact that Mephiston can't fly in this list. And I think that's a kind of a deal breaker for me. Once the list is done, what's your take? I was planning on running 2 heavy intercessor squads as my backfield objective holders while the rest of the army charges forth, mostly for long range shooting, says Frank. I like heavy intercessors, Frank. I actually bought the squad, or I bought that Dark Pariah box to get heavy intercessors. So I have 5 that are made and sprayed. I just haven't got around to painting them. I think holding the backfield with the executioner rifles, I think, which are like 42 inches, strength 5, -2 damage, I think is pretty legit. I mean, they are more expensive in points. 2 squads of them, maybe. I guess I'd have to try it. Like, I haven't run either. I haven't run them for a while. I have run them at the very start of 9th edition. I did proxy them when they first came out. 2 squads might be a reach. Like, I would start with 1 squad. I guess it depends if you're thinking about running a whirlwind or how else you're running, what else you're running to deal with Fight Last, right? And Overwatch and stuff like that. So for me personally, I don't think I could fit in heavy intercessors right now. But I do like them. They are survivable. They do have the potential to do damage. And I think that the one thing you can also do with the heavy intercessors is you could give the sergeant like Quake bolts as well for their 42 inches. I think that'd be pretty interesting too. Hallie says 11 Mephiston, but he just dies every time I field him. Yeah, that's how I find Mephiston. 10 D3 is much different from 10 flat 3 damage. Yeah, it's a hell of a swing. And Tony rated this list 37. So Mephiston is almost more disappointing than Dante. At least Dante is still firstborn. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit sad. My army list showed limited to 2k points armies. It's not limited to 2k point armies, I suppose, Trek, but typically we do play 2,000 point games, right? That is usually the size of games I'm playing. If you want to submit a different sized game, I'm happy to look at it, but like I would just say my analysis isn't going to be as strong as it is on 2,000 points, because 2,000 points is where... So, get your drink glasses ready, guys. Last year, the end of last year, from like probably like September to November, I ran a super heavy tank list that did 8 games in a row wins, which we retired. And then just in the last few months, we did another list that won 11 games in a row and has been retired. So now my goal is to make this third 9th edition list, which I guess will probably be my tournament list. And the idea is to try and do more than 11 games in a row without a defeat. And, both those other lists, I guess, could come back because neither of them were beaten. But, yeah, I feel like my analysis is going to be strongest on 2K lists because that's what I play primarily week on, week out, right? I like the little B remotes in chat. Thank you for that. And then Krychek says he thinks that the troop choices are the weakest point of Lloyd's lists. They lack variety. Which, do you know what? Assault Intercessors are good, right? They do a lot of attacks. I guess if you actually break it down, Assault Intercessors potentially do the most damage of any of the troop choices. But troops aren't really there to do damage, right? Like, you need... In my lists, I usually need someone to perform actions. So a Phobos unit of troops fits that role perfectly, especially with guerrilla tactics, being able to pop them around the board and whatnot, and so forth. Excuse me, getting tongue-tied. We need to make a "Have you heard about my win streak" meme. You can type !win streak in the chat, right? And my little bot will jump in and defend my integrity. I think. All right. And do you know what? We'll be going over my list that has won a lot of games tomorrow night at 8:30. We'll be talking about some tactics and strategies around that. So if you want to join in and see some, we've got that going live tomorrow. I'm getting into 40k for now, and I'm playing 500 to 1,000 point games. Yeah, I mean, if you've got a smaller list, like a 1,000 point list, I can definitely look at it and make some suggestions. I have played a few 1,000 point games. So I guess we can go over that as well. And here comes my bot to defend me. Alright, so Nick submitted this list next, and this is list number 5. Let me just update the little note. So yeah, just feel free to submit 1,000 points. We might just if you do submit 1,000 points, we might just add it on to the end of a normal show, because it wouldn't take that long to look over. And we can make a couple of suggestions, I'm sure. Alright, Nick. Smaller than 2,000 points as Blood Angels is hard for me to build. I actually do think it gets a bit harder when you get smaller as well. Okay. Right, so this list is, let me find it. It's a battalion, and it's got an extra relic, and it's also got an Angel's Ascendant. Okay, so it's got Mephiston, it's got Dante, and then it's got a Primaris Librarian with Veil of Time, Null Zone. He is a Soul Warden, and he also has a Psychic Fortress, and he has the Tomb of Malachor. Okay, it's strange to take Tomb of Malachor. I think Malachor is a Star Wars planet. I think this is Malachor. It's strange to take that and not take Wings of Sanguinius, in my opinion. But because I think the strength of Null Zone is being able to reposition the Psyker with wings. But I guess that's just that. We then have Assault Intercessors, Heavy Intercessors, and an Infiltrator Squad. And the Heavy Intercessors, I guess, are taking the Executioner Heavy Bolter. I actually don't know what that does. I guess it's one of the Heavy Intercessors weapons. Let me just find that in my codex real quick. Heavy intercessors. Executioner heavy bolter is heavy 2, flat 3 damage. Alright, that's pretty interesting. Do you know what? The guy that was just asking about heavy intercessors, what about having a heavy intercessor squad where the sergeant has that executioner heavy bolt rifle, which is strength 5 minus 2, 3 damage, heavy 2. What about mastercrafting that? So he has a 4 damage heavy bolter in the backfield, 42 inches away, heavy 2. That sounds pretty interesting, right? I mean, I don't know why no one's ever mentioned that before. Maybe I need to try that with my one squad of heavy intercessors. Just have a 4 damage heavy bolter in the backfield, pumping 2 shots out every turn. I mean, that's potentially 40 damage. I mean, seems pretty good. It's only 30 more points than the infiltrators, and I mean the infiltrators tend to not shoot that much. But I mean, in my list, I don't think it would work because I need the infiltrators to do my actions. But someone else's list, if you're talking about using heavy intercessors in the backfield, then that would be one way to do it. Seems like every time I end up watching the stream, I learn that everything I just painted up has become garbage or was never good. Climb, I think that is the whole hobby, man. I am always seems like I feel like I've painted everything Blood Angels at least once, and I feel like I'm always still painting more Blood Angels because weapon options change, and it all comes around and goes around, right? I mean, for example, I painted that super heavy tank, right? I don't know if you've seen the super heavy tank that I have, but it's a giant super heavy tank, and it just wasn't. It was literally unfieldable for I guess the longest time. I got a picture of it. This Spaltion, right? I literally just could not field it. It cost too many points, and this thing took me forever to do, right? Literally probably took a month just to build it because it's Forge World and you need to actually have a saw to build it. And then probably took me a couple of months, maybe even 3 months to paint it and transfer it up and stuff. And yeah, it was literally unfieldable for a whole edition. I bought it and basically never got to play with it, or played with it once and was like, alright, yeah, this isn't going to work. And then in 9th edition, they changed all the rules and it's like, oh shit, this tank actually has some crazy value now. I like it a lot. And it genuinely won a lot of games. I mean, it's probably not the most competitive or the most sane list, but yeah, I mean, it goes. What goes around comes around, I guess. One edition it's not good. Next edition it would be good. They cost too much for 5 dudes, says Mark. I mean, yeah, maybe. I guess they are 30 points a model at that point. 150 points, same cost as a Sanguinary Guard. Sanguinary Guard will do more damage than them. It's an interesting thought, though. If there's a backfield objective, you can just sit them on. So they're kind of doing 2 things at once, though, right? They're sitting back there and they're also getting to shoot. Because quite often you sit on objectives and your models don't shoot, right? Stalkers and regular bolt guys are the better option. I mean, maybe. The problem with regular intercessors are they're not survivable, right? Heavy intercessors are crazy survivable, I guess, with their toughness 5 and their 3 wounds per model, and they're likely going to be in cover, so probably saving on 2s, Okay, and then, so 1 assault, 1 heavy, 1 infiltrator. Elite-wise, we have 5 Blade Guard veterans, and 5 Blade Guard veterans, I guess we'll see. 5 might be too many here. I'm not sure you need a 5-man squad of Blade Guard veterans. The Sergeant has the Archangel Shard, which is interesting. You can do that, can you? Angel's Ascendant does what again? He can take any relic, or can he just take a special? He can take a special. Angel's Ascendant. Use the stratagem, select 1 Blood Angel Sergeant. That model can have one of the following. Mastercraft. No, you can't do that. I don't think this is valid. You can, the relics that you can take are specifically listed within Angel's Ascendant, and that is not one of the ones that is specifically listed, so I think that's not valid. We then have the Apothecary, who has this powerful pistol. I've seen this pistol before, and we have Rites of War. Okay. And then we have a Redemptor, Macroplasma, Onslaught. We have Sanguinary Guard, 2, 4, 6, 8, mostly swords, axes, that's absolutely fine. We have Vanguard Veterans, Claws, Lightning Claws, a bunch with chain swords, another Lightning Claws, and then Mastercrafted Relic Blade. Well, you definitely can't do this Angel's Ascendant twice. Because it literally says on the stratagem, you can use this stratagem once at the bottom, so Angel's Ascendant cannot be done twice. So I guess you have to lose that anyway because it's invalid. But if you're doing it, you can't do it on 2 units like you've done here. Then we have 4 Eradicators with the Multi-Meltas and the Whirlwind with the Vengeance Launcher. So, I mean, there's a lot to say about this list. I guess we've talked a lot about Mephiston already on the stream about how he's not as strong as the Librarian Dreadnought. I think that is the general consensus. Dante is fine, but you can make sort of, in my opinion, stronger characters than Dante now. If you want to run Dante as a force multiplier, it's fine, but it depends, I guess. Like, depends on how you're using him. You have to think of him almost like that priest. He's not a combat character until later in the game. So why bother all this work to min-max if you're pulling your hair out every month to readapt lists that lack some of the best flavour units? I guess, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's every few months, right? I would say that it's more like every edition things change. And sure, some new things come to the surface and some new things appear, but I don't know. I mean, the hobbies as much for me, it's about collection as much as it is about playing. I mean, maybe different people have different things that they enjoy from the hobby. One of the things I enjoy, obviously, is painting and collecting and assembling an army. So if I have to assemble new things to make my army more competitive, yeah, I mean, I guess it's a little bit annoying, but at the same time, like, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't enjoy it. And one of the things that I actually find the funnest is the min-maxing stuff, right? Because, like, that's kind of what my channel's all about, right? Min-maxing stats and models and units to see what's best. So, you know, like, I was going to say, when I lose a game, which doesn't happen very often, I guess first thing I would come home is, like, go home and start looking at, you know, all the strengths and weaknesses from my list. Like, what did I do wrong? What can I make it better? And, you know, even though I've been winning games a lot, I'm still trying to look at my lists as well and be like, how can I make this stronger? Because ultimately, like, if you want to take your list and go to a tournament and do well, which is kind of where I'm at, then you have to build a strong list that can fight against everybody. So, sure, the min-maxing is one thing, but I mean, you would get that in any game, right? Like, I'm sure if you play, I don't know, like a game you play over on Twitch or whatever, I'm sure there's people over there working out what guns are best or what guns are worst. So it's just the same thing. And yeah, maybe painting it all is a little bit annoying if you've already painted some of those models. You don't want to have to go paint more of them. But at the same time, like I said, what's strong this edition will not be strong next edition. You know, like, I painted 6 aggressors. I haven't fielded them maybe one time in 9th edition, but I'm sure that aggressors will have their day again. And, you know, I've played other games, like online games, where they change the balance with the patches and stuff, and, like, some of that patch changing actually keeps the game fresh, right? Like, if the game never got changed, it would become boring, I would guess. So the fact that things change is actually okay. I mean, if you're having problems on, like, not knowing what to paint, or if you're having problems on having made some units and they're not, like, and now we're talking about others saying that these guys aren't as strong, then I guess magnets are your best friend, right? And, like, you can start with stuff like dreadnoughts or tanks and magnetize them, and if you get good at magnetizing them, then you can move down to magnetizing infantry arms. As of late, I personally have ripped off a bunch of arms off Vanguard veterans and remagnetized them, right? So that, like, I now have the option, so I do not have to paint. Like, I literally have them right here. You can see them on my desk. So, like, I have a tiny little magnet in this Vanguard veteran arm right here. You can see the magnet in there, so that, like, we can now change these. We can basically have Vanguard veterans with chainswords, or we can have them with lightning claws, and we don't have to repaint the whole damn models. So, I mean, that's something to maybe aim for. That's just. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe other people in the chat see it differently from me. Yeah, okay, sorry. So back to this list. We have the Eradicators in the Whirlwind for the heavy support. We have a decent-sized Sanguinary Guard and Vanguard veterans. We have the Redemptor. We have the Blade Guard probably to sit middle. We have the Primaris Apothecary to probably help them and heal them. I kind of feel like the Primaris Apothecary, it's good he's got Rites of War. It might be better if he was a selfless healer. I think you can do that. And I don't know if I rate his Purgatoris. Like, it's just a stronger pistol. So I don't think I would take it. I looked at it before. I think it's like a pistol that does like -4 to damage. Let me double check that. Alright, so it's a strength 5 pistol, -3 to damage. But against infantry, it always wounds in a roll of 2 and has a damage characteristic of 4. I mean, it's not bad. It's not super strong either, I guess. I mean, if you can snipe out a character, maybe, if you can get closest. I guess that's something to consider. And then the troop choices, bit different from normal. I mean, he does have the 1 Phobos troops, so that's fine. And it is weird to not have some sort of mobility on the Librarian, who really needs the mobility to make Null Zone effective, right? And yeah, I think you're right. I don't know. Every army gets a codex refresh pretty much every 2 years at this point. So what's strong right now likely will not be strong in the next codex refresh, and some other unit will be. So you're never gonna be penalized for buying units or painting them or getting them ready, right? At some point in the future, use the aggressors for an example. Like, I have 100% confidence at some point in the future aggressors will be strong again. Just last edition they were way too strong, and like you were coming up against lists with 18 aggressors in it, and it just wasn't fun, right? So obviously, if people are going to run 18 of one model, and that's like half their army, Games Workshop are going to make that model weaker because, it was just ridiculous. So, and I mean, Eradicators are kind of that right now, right? Eradicators, point for point, are the most damaging unit, I think, in Warhammer. So I would argue, probably next edition, Eradicators aren't going to be as strong as they are right now. However, other units will get buffs to make them more relevant, so it keeps it fresh, man. And I guess, yeah, that's just the way I think it's probably always going to work. So even if you bought a unit that maybe isn't the greatest right now when you were halfway through painting it, don't let it upset you. Don't make it stop you finishing it. Finish that unit. If it doesn't get so much tabletop time now, that's fine. But it will be back. Yeah, and Steel Rain's absolutely right. Like, an edition ago or something, no one would have recommended you buy a Whirlwind. Everyone would have said the Whirlwind is useless. If you bought one, you were stupid. Now it's kind of core, right? Like, it's so strong for Blood Angels. So it just goes all the way around. And I mean, if you have something that's not super competitive, like Mark's saying he's got Storm Raven, then put it to the side and work on what is competitive right now, and then when you want to have a change or do something different, go back to your Storm Raven, So yeah, alright, let's have a look at scoring this list. Nick. So troop wise, I guess we're looking at like an 8. Assault Intercessors and Heavy Intercessors are a bit of a weird choice, but I don't think they're bad, and I think 3 troop units gives you some decent obsec. Anti-Horde Infantry, it's going to be weaker here. You've got the bolt guns on the Sanguinary Guard, you've got the Dreadnought, but beyond that, you don't have all that much. Maybe the Whirlwind, but again, like I said, the Vengeance Launcher isn't the strongest choice on the Whirlwind, so I think it's like a 7 here. Anti-monster infantry. I mean, we've got 4 eradicators, that gives us something. We've got the plasma on the dreadnought, that gives us something as well. But again, like, our characters aren't really designed to deal with infantry. Do you know? Oh, sorry, monsters. You know, Mephiston and Dante can do infantry, so maybe we need to say infantry is a 7.5 and monsters is like a 7. I don't think there's any. Do you know what? It's maybe a 7.5 as well. I mean, you have 5 Blade Guard veterans with those mastercrafted swords, which will do okay. But there's nothing super special here, I guess. And yeah, it's really strange to not have the librarian with the way you know, the mobility is key here. And then regular mobility, I guess, on this list is kind of lower in that we've got eradicators that aren't mobile, apothecary, Blade Guard veterans, 2 of the 3 troop choices, and the librarian are all immobile or not as good mobility wise. So again, I think it's like a 7. And then 3 damage weapons in this list is low. I mean, I guess you could include this Purgatorus, Dante's Infernal Pistol, Mephiston's sword, and this, I guess, probably the Primaris Librarian sword. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then your Melthas. So like 9. So again, we recommend usually, maybe 10 if you include this. But I still think it's a bit lighter than what I would normally say. And yeah, I mean, this... It's got a good number of CP for starting with. And it's got... it's alright, Climb. I mean, if you want to ask questions, I mean, we're all here to we're all here because we like Blood Angels, and I'm sure we've all been frustrated at some point of having to change weapons on a model that we finished, or a model isn't strong. I'm not sure we've reviewed a list from you, Climb. So if you want to submit a list, we can talk over it, you know, and we'll try and talk over it objectively. I mean, that's the whole point. Because you don't have to... I know I did a video on like the top 10 HQ or the top 10 stratagems and the top 10 units, but you don't have to use those things to be successful, right? And this is starting with 9 CP. Like, my list beforehand, when I had that super heavy tank, no one is running that super heavy tank except me, I'm pretty sure. Like, I haven't seen any other Blood Angels player ever run that super heavy tank, but it was undefeated. You know, it won 8 games in a row. My friends couldn't figure out how to beat it, so it just, you know, there is options that can be run that can still be really strong, and they don't have to be all the meta picks, right? And I think that's something that we probably do more on this channel than other people, right? Because on some of the other channels, they basically say, like, it's Sanguinary Guard, it's Death Company, and if you can't do those 2 things, then Blood Angels, you're not a Blood Angels list, right? And, like, I just don't agree with that at all. The bot picks up on everything, apparently, Echo Mirage. How you doing, man? Thanks for watching. Zakari Raiders are a massive problem, and good indirect shooting is one of the best solutions. I suppose. Just the Vengeance launcher and the Whirlwind Vengeance is just poor in general, I guess, due to the lack of number of shots it tends to get. Adam hasn't run it because he doesn't have a super heavy tank. Well, you should get a super heavy tank, Adam. It's a project in of itself. If you want to say goodbye to 3 months of your life, I guess. Specialization. So we have 10 3 damage weapons. We have a bit of a mismatch of troops. We have a bit of a mismatch of like monster killing. And we have a lot, like, I have a question mark around all the HQs here. So I think to finish up today, we were going to do like a 7 for specialization. Maybe even, based on Lloyd's list before, this is slightly better. Yeah, we'll say a 7. So Nick's list finishes up on like 37. So Frank, unfortunately, there isn't a battle tomorrow. We're going to have to put live battles on hold for maybe 2 or 3 weeks because of like a spike in COVID cases in my local area. We were testing pretty regularly. Like I had a negative test this week, so we haven't seen any, like, no one that we've been playing with has COVID, but just the spike in the local area is worrying. So we're just going to wait until we can review it in a few weeks' time. So we'll be live tomorrow night, but we're going to go live an hour later than we normally do, at 8:30, and we're just going to be talking about tactics and stratagems. I think I put a post. I kind of forget. So we're supposed to be just chatting and hanging out and talking all things 40k, for maybe like 2 hours or something. But what I'm going to do is I'm also going to grab a bunch of screenshots of the recent battles that we've had against the hardest opponents, I guess, that we've had, which would be like the Sisters of Battle, the Death Guard, the Necrons. Probably those. We'll pick like a battle, like, because we beat Sisters of Battle a couple of times. We beat Death Guard a couple of times. So we'll grab some screen caps of like the turns or like important things in the game, and we'll talk about like my strategy to beat these armies, because Sisters of Battle are obviously a very tough army to beat. Death Guard are a very tough army to beat. Necrons, with all their obsec, can be tough as well. So we'll talk about how we do those, and we'll also just answer any questions that people have about 40k, and we'll just hang out for a couple hours, I guess. There are no lists because I'm new and trying to feel how all those synergies work. Top list units or not, I am trying to figure out how to make my stuff work. I last played in 3rd edition. I mean, alright. Then I guess we have a Discord and a Facebook group that you can get to from the video description. So if you wanted to join either of those and submit some of the stuff that you have, and you want some help into building it into your first list, I'm sure people in the chat would be more than happy to help in the Discord or with Whirlwind. And I try and get in those places, probably not as much as I should, but I try. So I'd be happy to answer a few questions there as well. So, cool. Yeah, so hopefully we'll be back tomorrow night. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Congratulations to Tony and Steel Rain. I think you guys were both on top today, really. And I think that both you guys' lists were pretty good. And they were both the variants of like the patrols and the patrol and vanguards, weren't they? Which I think is slightly stronger than a battalion right now. Steve says the community is awesome for list helping. Thanks, Steve. So I think they were the strongest. And so hopefully we'll be back tomorrow night then. And I honestly don't know how it will go because I don't have any script planned or anything. I was just planning to continue playing live games on Monday, but I think in order to be a bit safer, we're just going to take a break until the COVID cases basically dry up here. Hopefully that won't take too long. If everybody else was being as responsible as me, I don't think it would take long, but I guess they aren't, so we just have to wait. But yeah. Alright, guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And thanks for hanging out last night as well. We had good fun painting some Sanguinary Guard. And I think if there's anything else that people want to talk about tomorrow, leave me a comment in this community post as well. And I'll pick it up tonight and see if we can talk a little bit about it tomorrow. But yeah, normally we are always live on a Monday night. And I am trying to get... So people have requested that we play against Drukhari, Orcs, and do you know what? No one's requested we play against Admech, but do you know what? There was a question earlier today from someone in chat about how to beat Admech. So those are the 3 battles that I'm going to try and arrange. I don't know quite when I can arrange them, but I've definitely spoken to an Admech player, a Drukhari player, and an Orc player, so they all know that I want to play against them. So hopefully, I guess, probably no battles for a few weeks. Then when we come back, we will hopefully get those battles. And of course, Andrew's still working on improving that Sisters of Battle list that we keep beating, but Sisters of Battle are 100% tier 1. I don't know if you guys look at the Goonhammer tier list. Goonhammer tier list. Right now, Sisters of Battle are literally the number 1 army on the tier list, I think. Yeah, Sisters of Battle are number 1. Funny enough, Death Guard are number 2. And these are the ones that I seem to always have to play against every week. So we will... I know Andrew's been trying to work on his Sisters of Battle list further to beat me, so tell him to bring 3 Repentia. I think he is bringing 3 Repentia. I think last time, though, he maybe brought like 3 squads of multi-melted Devastators, or whatever they're called for Sisters of Battle. Retributors, I think. I mean, it is a lot of multi-melta shots that he brings, so I guess... yeah, hopefully we'll get back to some live games soon. Hopefully we'll have a slightly new list for you guys to check out. And it's almost like you're in a competitive meta. Yeah, it's almost like I don't prefer Goomhammer, but I agree Sisters are S tier. Yeah, I did pick up a Whirlwind turret. That's something. Absolutely, I mean, the Whirlwind is core, man. Absolutely core. If you just start your list around a Whirlwind climb, that is something. So... yeah, no, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you did enjoy the stream, please consider hitting that like button. It does always help me out. And yeah, I guess I will catch a bunch of you guys tomorrow night, and we'll just go over some tactics and thoughts, and hopefully it'll be an interesting stream. So and also, if you are new here, please consider subscribing. That always helps out too. So you're very welcome. Do you know what, dude? I want to make the whole thing about this channel is I want it to be positive, and I want it to be inclusive, and I don't want anyone to feel like they can't submit a list regardless of how new they are. We were all new some point, and you know what? I wasn't even new in 9th edition, and I lost a ton of games at the beginning of 9th edition, having basically not realised that things have adapted and shifted, and some of those Space Marine units are important, and I was feeling a bit negative myself at 9th edition. But so one of the reasons I'm making this channel is to help people out, you know, and yeah. So please join our Discord, or please join the Facebook, and give us some, you know, give us a list of what you've got, and someone will be able to guide you to join the 41st Millennium and get some wins. So yeah, awesome, guys. Have a great weekend. Then I will see some of you tomorrow night. And that's it. By the blood are we made. Peace.